Welcome to the July 28th, 2026 meeting of the Administration Committee of the Agribusiness Development Corporation. I am the chair, David Hinazumi. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Alston Plus will explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
For all of you joining us online, your microphone will automatically be muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you have finished speaking. For those of you joining by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9. A voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone, as well as in-person access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Alston. This meeting is called to order at 9:12 a.m. I will take a roll call of the committee members present. When your name is called, please verbally acknowledge your presence and state who, if anyone over the age of 18, is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or abstentions. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Okay, member Kira Kahane is excused. We have committee member Jason Watts
President Malone.
and committee member Deputy Director Dane Wicker.
Present alone.
Okay, thank you. We do have quorum to proceed. Members are reminded to have their cameras turned on and remain on screen during the meeting, especially during the vote, so the record will clearly reflect who was present at the time the vote was taken. Okay, there are no minutes to be approved today. So moving on to agenda item C1, request committee approval of ADC budget recommendation to be reported to the ADC Board of Directors. As fiscal year 2028 represents the first year of the upcoming biennium budget cycle, the budget planning and recommendations will address funding and operational needs for both fiscal years 2028 and 2029. The committee will discuss milestones and priorities in order to provide the agency's board of directors with a report and recommendation regarding fiscal year 2028 to 2029 budget matters. Okay, so members, what you will see in the submittal is the draft budget and just very brief kind of background before we dive into it. The budget is what you see is focused on the operations, revenue we bring in, expenses that go out. And then beyond that, you will see budget requests that the agency prioritized in terms of both operations as well as capital improvements. Okay, so with that said, is there any member of the public who would wish to testify on this item?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Wendy, is there anything you would like to add before we open this up for discussion?
Chair, the only thing I would like to point out is that there is a operating shortfall of 1.9 million in fiscal year 2028, but you will see an improvement in the operating shortfall moving from 1.9 to 1.1 in fiscal year 29. The second thing I just wanted to highlight is in some of the asks, specifically in regards to salary increases. That is not a given that those are going to happen. It just provides for flexibility if funds are available. So it is not, it should not be perceived that that is all going to be hitting at the numbers that are represented. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, why don't we just open this up for a discussion? From our members, and then Alston, if you want to pull it up, if you can pull it up on screen. Okay. Thanks, Alston. And then, yep, Chair Watts, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks, Chair Hinizumi. Just one question for Wendy. So the shortfall for this year and not for next year, why is that?
It's because our revenue do not cover the expenses associated. And
Well, how do we know that it's going to be okay next year?
when you say, how do you mean for fiscal year 28 or fiscal year 29?
Following year. You said we're going to be short this year.
Yep.
But
So
we're going to be okay in the following year.
I wouldn't say okay. I said you'll see an improvement. It goes from 1.9 million to 1.1 million. And the two primary reasons for that to go down is number one, having completed the Grove acquisition as intended by the close of calendar year 26, there should be new revenue associated by the tenants that are on that 1,000 acres. So that is one of the new income streams. And then the other is the additional acreage that has been licensed on Oahu, and those income streams coming into the equation to offset the expenses. So that's the reason for the $800,000 improvement. But we are still short. And the reason that we are short is the majority of our licenses are considerably below market rent, and they are fixed, for another 10 to 20 years. So there is not the ability to have step ups. There are very few rent reopenings where we can do an appraisal and adjust the rent. So unfortunately, we are currently tied to below market rate license fees to generate revenue at the present.
Can you folks itemize that? Itemize the with the Grove Farm acquisitions, all the new revenue from who and what?
We can do that for
Yeah, and then because I think so the new income streams, it'd be good to know, what exactly we're talking about, what those dollar amounts look like, how that works against our shortfall. And then regarding the new license, the licenses being that are below market value.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be good to know what is that, like what percentage of our leases are there, and then what the timeline looks like for when those leases would be renegotiated or brought up to the new rates. And then secondly, it'd be also helpful to know what the leases that you have asked us to give lease credit to for up to 2 years at the current market rate, what those numbers look like. Because I think you asked us to give up to 13 leases that would all be at the current market rate of $1,800 per acre per year. You've asked us to give them a 2-year rent hold.
Up to 2 years, yes.
Yeah, so it'd be good to know what that dollar amount is that we're exempting.
We're not prepared to give all those answers right now, but we can be prepared on Thursday to give those answers.
Well, I understood, but I think going forward, we need to know those things, right? Like even in the board meetings when you ask us to within 3 months of a decision change a decision to then give people least credit, we got to know what those dollar values look like because on one hand you're seeing that majority of our leases are not at the market rate because of lease terms. But at the same time, too, we just issued 13 leases at the market rate that you then went ahead and asked us to now give a 2-year exemption to. So it'd be helpful to kind of know what those things look like, and then of course, how do we prioritize projects that are necessary to cure that rent hold, so we can get them in a paying status as soon as possible. That's important to know too. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And then Alston, if you can, okay, so this first sheet, to follow up on, what you just inquired about, Alston, if you can go to the next page, looks like page 2 of 9. Okay, so in here, this account S312, this is basically our land leasing, operations portion account. You can see the revenue coming in from, the different properties, different islands, as well as associated expenses. And then what the attempt here was to, break this out. So when you see Kauai, Oahu, and statewide, then that is basically our, our known, operations. What we broke out below that line is there's a few, not quite sure if you'd call them, more short term. Of course, ideally, it'll be short term items. So one item you're going to see that leads to a large expense is a Kauai pump replacement. So that is in fiscal 28. So that is part of one of the bigger chunks as far as the shortfall in it. But those are that Kauai pump replacement. It's more of a one-off project, and that's why I was put below the line so you can see it's not hopefully this will help identify that it's not necessarily a recurring item that we're going to be dealing with year to year. So that was one of the other reasons for the larger shortfall in 28. And then to provide a little further background, there is a much deeper dive we need to do into into our numbers, how it's reported, how it's coded to different accounts. Sorry, Alston, can you back up to page 1 again? You can see a number of expenses shown in this general fund G161. Unless there's another reason I'm not quite aware of, these would probably be more appropriate to be put into that 312 account to have all the operational costs in one account. So there's appreciate all the work that Mark has put in up to this time. He's functioning as like an accountant as well right now. doing the best, to put all of this information together. So, it is a best effort at this point to provide some kind of picture. And then, like I mentioned, there's a number of things at deeper dive as far as the expenses where they should be accounted for, and then of course, the revenue that you asked about. Greater detail will be needed. Um, Increases. They'll need to be double checked to make sure whether they're income. Whether they're contingent on anything. You mentioned those leases that are deferred right now until the water infrastructure can be put in. So, all of those things need to be confirmed to see how firm the projected increases are and what may need to occur to capture those increased rents.
Thanks, Chair. One more question, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the pumps so we spent $227,000 this year.
So where that is coming from is the projection provided is that project would start from this year, fiscal 27. A portion of, percentage of completion, in fiscal 27, with the remainder to be completed in fiscal 28. So that is how that is accounted for right now.
Okay. So how, I mean, I guess for Wendy, I'm trying to figure out how you folks came to that number.
So the number
Is that-
represents a percentage that needs to be paid for
$1,000
sorry.
is from 3 years ago. So do you even have a current appraisal or current purchase order? I mean, we haven't even entered into a contract to purchase the pumps yet.
Correct.
So how do we know what these dollars are?
So the dollars are based on the estimates that we have called around to get kind of a general estimate without inferring any procurement issues based on the specs of the pump, what kind of the market rate is at the present. And then the number that you see, the 227,000, is based upon a percentage of a down payment that needs to be made when the pumps are ordered. And then it takes approximately 54 weeks for the pumps to be manufactured and then shipped to Kauai.
And who because we were told in the past it'd be up to half the value upon ordering, and then the remainder among receipt.
So
Right,
the change represents a change in the market.
Who though? Like what are you guys looking at to justify? I mean, what are we basing that off of?
So there's some market specs that are in the current RFQ that represents the flow rate and the size of the pumps that need to be purchased. So those are the specs that we're looking at comps for.
Okay, so ADC would only have to put up $225,000 to order the pumps.
Yes. That's the most recent estimates.
And then the remainder would be to complete purchase. Okay, so now, but this is not including shipping and handling though, right?
I have to go back and check.
I believe this is only the cost of the pumps.
I think you're correct. I think it is just the cost of the pumps in the 227.
So I think we got to account for that too, because it's coming from a foreign country too. So I imagine the cost is going to be pretty significant, even more than the pumps may possibly. If like our company, we order stuff from over, the mainland. Even most shipping rates to Hawaii are even more than the equipment costs. So I think we got to get an accurate number on what it would cost to get it here.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Chair Hinazumi, are there any other details that you would like us to focus on, whether it's operating or CIP?
okay, so Alston, can you stop sharing and allow me to share? Okay, thanks. Uh, okay, Alston, can you give me access to share? Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, might be just a little bit easier for me to just scroll through this. Okay, so we're looking at fiscal 28 that we're just focused on we'll jump into a few more details and then just kind of circle back on like the bigger picture of what all of this means. One item that we definitely need to be focused on is the is a contract with PMRF, as well as follow up on NPDES testing requirements. We need resolution on that. It's because we are in the situation that we are in that we have these large testing costs. So what is reported is $650,000 per year. So we will need resolution on that. So that needs to be a focus. And then another detail item is this is scrolling down now to account S325 for our water systems. We received an appropriation to pay the debt service. As you can see, what we show is that at the start of fiscal 28, we've got a little over 3.55 million in this account, at least on paper. Okay, the details that I've been asking for is where is this money? And does ADC have control over it? Because if it's just sitting, this is what I've mentioned before about our money management, that we need to be looking at where this money is, what kind of account it's in, make sure it's some kind of interest bearing, whether ADC has has the I don't know, quote unquote right to the interest, but that's not reflected anywhere. So there's a deeper dive that needs to be done, like I mentioned before. And then provided this agency is able to receive that interest, we need to report that as as income. And then we can get the, greater details as far as, how much longer, what the term of this debt service is. I'm just by looking at numbers, you would guess it's maybe another 10 years or so, maybe not quite. Um, some things like that. And then kind of backing up now to the the top line that's shown here, this legislative appropriation for operations. So this is basically the number you plug in when you look at our, projected profit and loss for fiscal 28. So we are projecting a $1.9 million loss, or maybe just under that. So this is a number just being plugged in to account for the shortfall. Okay. And again, all of these numbers are, are focused on the operations of the agency. And so when we get back to the last page of fiscal 28, you'll get an idea of basically what our operating budget is. Again, we do have more money in the account based on this, appropriation for debt service and another pass-through appropriation for University of Hawaii.
Chair, I will just let you know that the last payment for the Waihole bond is due on April 1st, 2035. That's the current debt schedule.
Okay, so again, the appropriations received by the agency to run projects, that is not included in here. That will just need to be tracked, separately. Okay, and then when we keep scrolling down to fiscal 29, and sorry, there's a typo in this in this document. This page 4 of 9 should be fiscal 29. Okay, so same process on this. As we touched on earlier, completion of that Kauaʻele pump, it'll be completed. So that was about $650,000 expense that is removed. And then as we get to fiscal 29, account S312, you can see here, this is where the increases are projected. Sorry, for the Grow Farm purchase, and including that revenue in our account. That actually begins in fiscal 28 and then continues through fiscal 29. And then you can see here in the Galbraith line item, there's quite a big step up. And again, this is being projected, and we will need further confirmation that, as far as how firm this step up is going to be. If any of this is related to the need to build out infrastructure, then we need to make sure we've got, that accounted for as well, so that project can be completed. But the big step up here is Galbraith. Fiscal 28, we're showing about maybe 550,000 in revenue. So you can see it's quite the increase. And, what is telling about this is that, the overall focus needs to be on, how to increase our number of acres that we lease out, as well as increasing the rental rate. And then also there's some increases to projected for Dole and Palauka properties.
Chair, for Waihole, we're paying off that debt service though, right?
Yes, on an annual basis, it's being paid down. So when we scroll down to fiscal 29, the water system account, you can see here now that after pay down in fiscal 28, this is the balance remaining, and this is a projected pay down in fiscal 29. So yes, that will get paid off in time.
But didn't we get an appropriation to pay it off?
Yeah, so sorry, I cannot tell you when the appropriation was provided, but it's been it has been in the account for a number of years. So it's been slowly
No, I think, Chair, he's talking with the legislature this year just provided a lump sum to cover the remaining principal and interest to pay off the entire bond. But I think that's an interesting point, as Board Member Watts provided earlier, regarding if we know, like with contracts, when they are set to expire, when the new rates would kick in, what those probables are moving forward. Plus, in a situation like this, what's the revenue once the P&I is paid off? For cash flow, that can help us if we're exploring other things such as revenue bonds for future investments or future acquisitions. So good to get.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair, because Wendy said 2035, but I thought we were going to pay it off.
Yes, I was just referencing that Chair Hinazumi asked what the term length of the bond was, so I was giving that answer of what the original term length was. Generally speaking, we pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 per year in principal.
No, I understood, but you know we got the appropriation.
Yes, but it basically will free up about $350,000 per year.
But why is the budget you guys are giving Chair Hinazumi not reflecting that? It doesn't say anything about that. You guys are budgeting here a yearly payment.
What do you think that the budget of the yearly payment is?
Well, looking at this, it doesn't say zero.
Mm-hmm.
Did we or did we not receive an appropriation to pay this off?
We did receive the appropriation. We have to go through the steps of getting the funds deposited into the account. The expense that you see would be the people expense, as well as equipment, gas, and spring. That is not a representation of the debt.
Okay, so that would be helpful to understand too then in this, right? Breaking out Waihole into those things so we can see clearly what the legislature has chosen to pay off. Because when you say appropriation to pay debt service, that's the bond that's been paid off, or money's been appropriated to pay that off. Right? So we should be projecting some kind of revenue going forward. If the board chooses not to refund that to the users of the system, now that the bond has been paid off.
We can make that change and make it more clear.
Well, no, I mean, but Wendy, I guess I'm asking why it wasn't done, because if you're budgeting out without years, you just received a approval from the legislature and appropriation of the legislature. The governor signed it. Why wouldn't our budget reflect that?
So the budget that you're looking at for fiscal year 28 and fiscal year 29, it does not reflect any payments for the debt. The expenses that you're seeing are towards equipment and personnel. That is not debt service. It is not included in the fiscal year 28 or 29.
Wait. Okay, I'm thoroughly confused. Okay, so as this was put together, okay, so the page we're on, 6 of 9 right now of the budget, right? It shows Oahu, Waiole Water System, and it shows what the expenses are to operate the system. Okay. This appropriation to pay debt service, my understanding is completely separate. It's just the, paying off of the financing that was put together for the acquisition.
What we're trying to figure out is if we have the appropriate debt ceiling level that we can actually use that entire amount and pay it off. So we're working through that with budget and finance. And so what you're seeing is like a conservative approach of saying that we may not be able to fund that due to our ceiling cap.
No, what was presented for us to work on is none of that. This is, to my knowledge, zero of this debt service being paid down by anything.
Can you go down? Can you scroll down? So you see the appropriation to pay debt service, appropriation to pay the debt service of 3.1. That would be the outstanding debt. The 428 represents paying principal and interest if we are not able to pay it off completely due to the debt ceiling cap.
That is correct, but then there is in these numbers, there is zero being even assumed that could be paid off based on this, current appropriation. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't brought up at all.
So I think what you're asking is it should have been put up. It's instead of below the line for the water system
No,
S325.
it's not where the placement is. What each of our committee members has just talked about, having an appropriation to pay this off. That was not pointed out anywhere. And I'll scroll back to fiscal 28. Okay, it's not a matter of where this thing is being shown. Okay, what this says is that there is, when you look at this, what this is showing is that there is no appropriation to pay this thing off, even 1%. Okay, and that's what needs to be shown.
The question, Wendy. So you folks know already that the legislature did not appropriately raise our spending limit to allow us to expend the expenditure to pay off the Waihole bond? And if so, why haven't you guys told the board about this?
We are trying to put together additional detail with BNF so that we could present the right information, Chair Watts.
Understood, but part of the exercise of going through the budget is also helping us to determine how we ask the director and deputy director of DBED to ask on our behalf what appropriations are needed for ADC. And so if you already know this information, then we have to alert the deputy and the director that we're going to have to ask the legislature for legislation to increase that limit. And therefore, this appropriation is going to just go to waste. So we need to inform the director's office immediately we have an issue here. Not just keep budgeting as if we're not going to get anything. I mean, we have to. I mean, the legislative intent was to give us money to pay off this debt. But if they didn't authorize the proper things to authorize the expenditure limit ceiling, we have to inform the deputy director immediately so he can make the appropriate ask.
Let me close things out with the BNF folks, and then I will do that later today. I need to confirm that this is or is not an issue.
And then if it's not an issue, then the budget needs to be updated to show that it's paid off. My apologies, Chair. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. Any other comments related to what you're seeing in the budget itself? Okay. If not, we'll scroll down to what the proposed requests would be for fiscal 28 and 29. And the initial, the two buckets of requests, one falls under, operational. And that's what we see here on, page 12 of the board packet, pages, starting mainly on page 12, continues slightly onto page 13. Okay, and what this is requests to increase the ceiling when it comes to our staffing positions, salaries. And what you see right now is just the numbers you see, that's the requested increases. So, what I've asked is for an update, to reflect, what it currently is and what it would go up to in total. Because there are, the comps listed in the far right column under comments. And so, this is good to see what the total increase would be as far as the request, but then we'll still need to see what the compensation will be for each position, doing the best to, line it up with state and industry comps. Okay, so this, submittal page 12, that would be ADC staff. And then when we get to the top of submittal page 13, that request ceiling increase, that is a large number that definitely sticks out. And this line item is to operate and maintain all of the water systems, including Wahiawa. These are quite large, systems, Wahiawa, Waiole, Kekaha, and possibly East Kauai. And so this can include, a number of things as far as, us contracting services out. There's going to be additional detail, provided, based on request to break out this 6 million, what does this all cover? We definitely we'll need the detail on that. But that's generally what it is, basically to run, all of the water systems within ADC.
Chair, just one quick question. Wendy, to your point about you made a couple points. One was the pumps, and the other was not pumps, Waiahole and salaries. Do we know which positions are entitled to the annual increases that are tied to the union rate increases?
We can break that out. It's a percentage. It's like people will see like a 2% or a 4%.
No, understood. But do we know which positions are entitled to that?
I can get that information for you. I don't have that.
All right, because like for certain positions, we would know what their annual increase could be, or most likely will be. And then, I don't know, Deputy Director, I don't know if I'm correct or not, but for all the special funds positions, are those, they don't receive increases? They only receive increases that ADC gives them?
There would be, for special funds, we would have to do a salary differential request for those adjustments through the budget process.
So Wendy, it'd be helpful to know, which positions would get an increase just based off of their bargaining unit, whatever they're tied to, and then what positions would only get an increase if the board authorized it. You gotta help board members understand, like, certain people get increases because they're tied to something, and others, if we don't do anything, they don't get anything. So I think that'd be helpful to know.
We can do that, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then again on page 13 of the board submittal, there's some additional requests. Line item 2, you can see that's to cover our operating loss, projected operating loss, for each year. And some of the other items, that staff has presented to us before. One item, if you go to, the line item under, number 4, security for bot well and pump, that's that's a priority item, that was included, within the budget itself. So that is definitely a priority item on this list. And then probably, as we keep going through this, we are, looking at this in a, very detailed manner. And then what we, the board will need to, help review is, taking a higher level look, making sure that, what is being requested, either in the budget itself or, within these requests is in alignment with how our agency wants to move forward, based on our, projected strategic plan and, and other priorities that, has been discussed, through the board meetings. Okay. Anything to discuss on this page? So Wendy, I would say if anything, the security for Bothwell and Pump will move up in priority because it is, shown in the budget.
That is that we're gonna be paying the Department of Law Enforcement, sheriffs, or who are we paying for that?
So that is currently under a security firm as we wait for DLE to staff up, but the intention is to have DLE provide the service, and that security service is 24/7. These are diesel pumps that operate 24/7, and there is 24/7 security at those pumps. It is responsible for well over 3,000 acres of land are dependent upon this well and this pump operating every day. And there is a price that is paid for the water that includes the cost of the diesel and operating, but it's not going to cover that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then moving on to board submittal page 14, the other bucket of requests, related to capital improvement projects. Again, these are things that, have, proposed by staff, prioritized by staff, and, things that we've, touched on in past meetings. So, again, if, at that higher level of our strategic planning, just making sure that we are prioritizing this, according to how we, want to move as an agency.
Sure, just one question on this one. Wendy, so we're looking at projects. What did we lapse this year? Did ADC lapse any funds?
We did lapse some funds. We lapsed for the Cape Haha Bridge. That was, I think, about $2 million because the bids came in at closer to 3.5. So we couldn't build half a bridge. And I think that there was maybe 400,000 lapsed for the Cape Haha Ag processing facility because the bids for the equipment came in less than what was anticipated. But the equipment that was desperately needed was in fact procured. And then there was about $300,000 in security money that was lapsed.
And that was to the sheriffs or DLE?
That was to DLE, yes.
Can we get some further clarification on how it came to the fundings being lapsed? Was it because of timelines? We didn't give ourselves enough time with the process?
That was one of the contributing factors, yes.
And this is why we've emphasized project coordination and Gantt charts, so you can clearly see what's the deliverable each month. Also utilizing that as part of the ED reports to the board. Those appropriations, they were CIP funded?
Correct.
Were they 2-year or 3-year?
2-year.
Life. So most of it's 2. If we had 3 years, it would have been even better. They're not significant requests. And it was clear what the the part of it too is the projects. If we don't use the money, it'll be difficult to ask for those funds again for those projects.
Mhm.
Deputy, that's Wendy, to Deputy Director's point, that's why I've been asking for the breakdown of from the day of the appropriation to where we are today, and what everything that we did in between that. Because what I'm trying to figure out is where we need help in that project management. Because the fact of the matter is, to Deputy's point, these are two-year projects,
Mhm.
right? But the flurry of activity only happened in the last 9 months. So while I understand when you say we couldn't expand the money from the bridge because it was 3.5 million construction costs and we only got 2 million appropriation. Yeah, yes and no, but I also would say you asked over a year and a half after the fact. So every year costs go up. So waiting to the end of the project scope, you can always risk that, right? Like the cost of the project is gonna be more expensive 2 years later. And so that's really what I'm trying to figure out here is where we can help you folks in this timeline so that we can get to Deputy Director's point too, like he can get involved too in this charge to figure out where he can help push things along. So it's not to be punitive, but it's we can't help if we don't know where help is needed. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, to add to that, so the processing facility was via a result of legislative site visit. And so in some of that, the plans or design would be part of the process. So not having enough money is understandable. On the bridge, which bridge are we talking about here?
It's the largest bridge in Kekaha.
What's the name of the
in our
bridge?
Kekaha land. I think it just has a bridge number. It's not like
So
it's crossing.
whose project request was that? Was that a ADC request or was that a legislative request?
It was a legislative.
And so how did they get to the funding amount? I mean, because you said we're short, right?
Yes.
So how was it determined that that was the amount then, or what changed?
I have to get back to you on that, Deputy Director.
But how do we not know that if we've had that for 2 years now to say, okay, let's look at the project. Okay, it's short. What can we use and encumber? And then how do we ask for the difference?
One of the contributing factors was when some of the site visits were happening for the pre-bid. It was during the Kona storms. And so that definitely changed what the expectation was in terms of
We waited a year and a half before we started moving on the project because the Kona low was just 3-4 months ago.
there was a design component, but I can provide you guys with a detailed timeline to show, to your point, Chair Watts, where we really slowed down the process.
But to Deputy Director's point, I'm looking at the IFB right now. It wasn't even released until May 21st, 06.
So 2 months.
Almost 35 days before it's going to lapse. Like how is that even okay? I mean, it's almost impossible. You're racing the sun there.
And I've emphasized before, there are two major internal benchmarks when it comes to CIP. One, whatever the end goal is for that appropriation, and prior to that, working backwards to encumber. So the rush was to encumber, which seems like it started only 2 months ago. Was there a schedule to start this? When on your Gantt chart or your project management chart was this process supposed to start?
I don't have that pulled up in front of me, but it was basically started right after, I want to say August of 2024, when the forms came out that we could fill out for the requests.
And then when was the funding released? Or do we have to wait for funds to do the pre-bids?
We do wait for funds to be released to do the pre-bid.
So
But
we need to know when the request to release the funds was made, and then when the funds were awarded, and then the process to start the pre-bid. The staff can only move per your direction. And so if you're not organized with those deadlines, the staff won't move.
But yeah, sorry, but yeah, to that point, that's why the list of the timeline is important for us to work backwards, right? From July 31st all the way till 2 years ago to know what you folks did. But that's really, I'm not trying to be punitive, Wendy, but I'm just trying to figure out ways that the board can help with project management, right? I don't know why we would wait until May 21st, like, to try to do a $2 million bridge project when we had 2 years. So, we want to help. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, is it lack of staff time? Is it lack of project management? I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, when I look at a chart, to figure out where can we help speed up, or where can deputy director help with DBED or procurement, whoever, right? But in many cases, we don't know about these things until like it happens. So it's not to be attack anybody. It's really trying to, so it doesn't happen again, right? I bring it up now because we're looking at CIP for next year, and I don't want to go through this process every year where we're lapsing money here and there. Legislators work hard to get that money in the budget. It also counts against our ability to manage projects properly, right? So, we don't want to be, we don't want to just be not responsible. So anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on these CIP requests?
Sorry, Chair, one more question.
Go ahead.
Regarding the bridge, though, Mandy, is that a health and safety issue?
Do you mean replacing it?
Or whatever the project was, is that, because I'm wondering if it has to be reauthorized or re-requested.
We would determine that to be a major health and safety issue because
not determined based on what? Like, what was a report
Based on-
that said
based on
this is not fixed, this is at risk of collapsing within the next 12 to 14 months, therefore it has to be an emergency.
it's a combination of the state of the bridge, and that is the only other option for traversing through that area should something happen, like the highway gets flooded, which has happened. This is the only way 1,000 people can go to work at PMRF.
Okay, so I hear the urgency in your voice, yet we didn't treat the appropriation in the project that it seems that way because there's no clear timeline. And then, okay, where are we meeting this first benchmark? Where are we meeting at the second benchmark? That is never presented to the board too, through the ED reports, which are agended every regular board meeting.
And to add to that, Wendy, I'm looking at your CIP list. Why isn't it on the list for next year?
Well, what we were trying to do is pursue the DCIP grant, the Defense Community Infrastructure Partnership Grant, as a way to fund this. And so separately, we've been in discussions with the Department of Transportation about which grant actually is a better fit for replacing not just this one, but all 7 of the bridges.
Okay, so my suggestion to you, and that's great, but it would be that you would want to get it on the list. It's easier to take it off. You want to inform the board that we have a health and safety issue. It's a priority. It was previously authorized. It lapsed. It's going to require more money, but it's like to your point. You're obviously you're getting excited, worked up about it, so it's a priority, right? So it's got to be on the list. Because what's the probability of getting the grant? Do we even know that?
I can't give you a percentage on that. I don't know.
Exactly. So we want to get it on our CIP list. But that's where some of my concerns are is that these lists don't represent a totality of what ADC needs. And I'm just a little concerned on how you folks determine what gets on here because if we never asked, I mean, you wouldn't have put it on. I'm just concerned, Wendy. So I'm just trying to figure out how this, how you folks determine what you're going to tell the board about. Anyway, Chair, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion we want to have on this? Okay, so if not, what I would recommend at this time is that Wendy, you've heard all of these comments. Be prepared to address on Thursday at our special board meeting to discuss this. We can bring these items up at that meeting, and then should the board take action at that point, then what I would suggest is that we take up a motion at the board meeting to adopt an amended budget and request list. Okay. Any thoughts on the process?
Chair, so the deadline for DBED is next week, like this week, or
Yes, end of this week. End of
Thank you.
July was the deadline set. And it was a known deadline for a long time.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other discussion on this item, no informational items, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Chair Watts, second by Deputy Director Wicker. Any objections or abstentions? Okay, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned at 10:20 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.